Get ready for 10 of my very favorite farmhouse DIYs. They've got all the charm you're looking for, but on a budget that anyone can afford. And as always, DIY treats. Welcome to my channel, Craft, Eat, Repeat. Hi guys, it's Aneka, and welcome to my channel, Craft, Eat, Repeat. So I am so excited because I was thinking the other day and I realized that I've been on YouTube almost an entire year, and this year has been amazing. I remember my first video, I was too scared to get in front of the camera. I did not like the sound of my voice recorded. I didn't even want to watch my video after I posted it because I didn't want to hear my own voice. But this journey has been amazing, and that is thanks to you guys. So thank you so much. You know, the internet can be like a really negative and dark place sometimes, but this little corner of the internet that we've carved out here, and mostly thanks to you guys, is full of positivity and encouragement, beauty, and just creating just kindness. And so I just want to thank you guys for that and for making me feel welcome and loved here on Craft, Eat, Repeat. So I also realized that I've done some really fun DIYs over this year. So today's video is my top 10 farmhouse DIYs. So some of them are my favorites. Some of them were ones that you told me were your favorites down in the comments. Thank you for each and every comment. I do read them, even though I can't always respond to everyone, but all of them were great, and I really hope that you enjoy them. So if you're new here, welcome. Thank you so much for stopping by. If you like what you see, please consider subscribing. Everyone, hit that bell so you'll be notified when my next video comes out. And when the video is over, if you're new here, tell me which one was your favorite. And if you're not, tell me, have you done any of these DIYs yourself? Let me know how they came out. Or better yet, find me on Facebook or Instagram and give me a picture and let me see what you've created. I will also put down in the description box a link to each and every one of the original videos that these DIYs came from. So if you want more information or a printable, or if you just want to see what else was going on in those videos, then you can do that. Okay guys, it's time to craft. So we're going to start out with some farmhouse kitchen DIYs. I wanted a shutter like this one that I saw at Kirkland's, but it was $70 and I knew that wasn't going to fit in my budget. So I decided to make some out of paint stirring sticks. I needed 2 packs of the 5-gallon paint stirring sticks and 3 packs of the 1-gallon sticks. Now, if you're anything like me, you're in Home Depot and Lowe's a lot. Every now and again, I will just pick up some paint stirring sticks. So a lot of times I don't even need to buy them for these projects. They do give a few out for free, but if you do need to buy them, they're only about 98 cents a pack, so it's very affordable. I'm going to cut my 5-gallon sticks down to about 16.5 inches and my 1-gallon sticks down to 9 inches. Once I've done that, I'm going to take 2 of my 5-gallon sticks and I'm going to cut them in half. So that's about 8.25 inches. Once I've got all my wood cut, I'm ready to sand it down and start putting it together. So now what I want to do is take my 16.5 inch 5-gallon sticks and I'm going to glue them end to end. Now hopefully you've made your cuts nice and straight, and these should go together very easily. Now, as you can see up on that top stick, I did put the end of one of the sticks on top just to hold it together better, but I will show you later where you need to be very careful of where you place this. I ended up having to pry them off because I did not place them correctly. So next, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take my 5-gallon sticks that I cut in half. So these are 8.25 inches, and I'm going to put them perpendicularly between my 2 long pieces that I now have. And this is going to create my shutter. Now, this part, you want to get it nice and straight because this is what's going to make your shutter look nice and neat. So I'm going to put 2 at the top, and I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom of my shutter. Now, just to make sure this holds nice and secure, I'm going to go ahead and take some of those ends that I cut off of my sticks and place them over the seams where all of my sticks are coming together. This is just going to give it a little bit of added security. Now, as I was mentioning before, we also want to reinforce these seams of our longer sticks. However, we want to make sure that it's not too close to the inside edge because that's going to make it hard later on down the road. So these sticks broke off very easily, so I broke one in half. And then I place each half on the outside edge of my shutter. This way, when I'm putting my slats into my shutter, they'll still be able to sit nice and flush with the rest of the slats that we're putting on. Next, I took a skewer, and this is just a skewer that I got from my kitchen. You could use anything really. It could even just be a straw or anything of that nature. And I'm just going to put it right at the edge of my two slats that I put at the top. Now we're going to grab our 1 gallon paint sticks and we're going to put glue on both ends and then the top edge, and we're going to place it right on top of that skewer. And this is going to give us that nice slanted appearance for each slat of our shutter. Now, all along the way, I did turn it over and just make sure that my slats looked nice and neat, that they weren't leaning to one side or anything like that. So do make sure that you check it all the way down and that you have a nice uniform look. Once I got that together, I had my shutter. This looks amazing, you guys, and I can't believe I made this for essentially free if you have paint sticks that you've gotten from the hardware store. Now, I don't know if this part was necessary, but I did put some skewers all along the edge just because I wanted to put a little bit of extra glue to make sure that it was nice and secure. However, you don't want any of that glue seeping through to the front of your shutter because you'll have a hard time with the wood stain afterwards. So what I did was I went ahead and placed a skewer, and then I put the glue on the outside of the skewer, and then I was able to put a little bit on top as well to ensure each slat was nice and secure without having to worry about it bleeding through to the front of my shutter. Now, in order to paint this, I used a mixture of chalk paint and water, about 50% each, and that acts as a sort of a stain. So if you don't have any stain on hand, this is a wonderful trick you can use to get that stained look on your wood. You can still see the wood grain through the paint once it dries, and it looks amazing, and it's really affordable way if you don't want to go and buy an extra bottle of stain. However, you could also stain it. You can use antiquing wax, whatever you like for this step. That's one of the things I love about using these paint stirring sticks. You get to see that wood grain all the way through, and I just think it's really beautiful. Next, I went through with some white chalk paint and I just dry brushed some on to give it an aged and weathered look. And all dry brushing means is I put a tiny bit of white paint on my paintbrush. I wiped most of it off, and then I just came through and put just a little bit on each one of the slats. Now, you can use wooden letters if you want to. They are really not that expensive if you get them from Walmart. You can get some for about $2 to $3 of a really good size, but I was going for budget here. So what I did was I printed out my letters on just some printer paper, and then I cut my letters out. I taped it onto some project board that I got from Dollar Tree. So I was able to use probably about half a board to make all 3 of my letters. So that's not even $1. And then I used my X-Acto knife to cut it out. Now, when you're using an X-Acto knife, instead of trying to power your way through that board, you want to make multiple strokes, and this will give you a nice clean edge that you're looking for when you're making big letters like this. After I got it out, I just cleaned it up, And then I just use some of my Waverly chalk paint to dry brush some distressing on there, and I attached it with some tape or some glue onto my shutters. I think this looks amazing, and I paid a little over $4 for it instead of $70. Now, I love to save money on Kirkland's Decor, so I made 2 other dupes that you can see. I'll leave the link down in the description box. So next is a DIY that's one of my older ones, but you guys have told me over and over that it's one of your favorites. I got a clear bowl from Dollar Tree. They have lots to choose from in the party section, or even in the spring you can look in the gardening section and they'll have some there. And then this is some fabric that I got from Hobby Lobby. I love the brightness of the blue, so I'm going to use it on this bowl. So I'm just going to lay my fabric on top of my bowl and cut around the bowl. I'm giving myself a generous margin because if you're anything like me, you make mistakes when you're crafting, and it's easier to cut off the extra than it is to try to fix not having enough. Once I have my fabric cut, I'm going to take some Mod Podge and I'm going to apply it all over the outside of the bowl. Now, by doing it like this, I haven't put anything on the inside of the bowl, so I can still use it for food if I want to. Now I'm just going to lay my fabric down and I'm going to smooth it out as best I can all over my bowl. I'm going to add some extra Mod Podge if I need to make sure that it's sticking nice and secure to every part of my bowl. After I've got that done, I'm going to go ahead and put another layer of Mod Podge on the outside of my bowl. I want to make sure I use a nice generous layer on this so that it sticks really well. So I let this dry overnight just because I made it at night and I just waited till the next morning to cut it. I do think you could probably just give it about 2 or 3 hours and it would be dry enough for you to cut your excess cloth off of the edge. I'm just going to go through and snip it as close as I can, and it's okay if it's not perfect, but I'm just going to try to do my best. Now, in order to do this next step, I wanted to find the exact middle of my bowl. You guys, I think I just said bowl like 85,000 times. I apologize for that. But I wanted to find the exact middle. So what I did was find a little knob. It had like a little knob right in the middle, and that made it really easy for me to find where to start. At first I thought I wanted to cover this with twine because you know I love my twine, but it was just too thin and it wasn't looking great. So I grabbed some of this nautical rope from Dollar Tree and I did the same thing. I started in the middle and then I just started gluing and twisting all the way around the outside of my bowl, and that made all the difference. The nautical rope is definitely the way to go on this, or if you have some twine that's a little bit thicker and heavier than the twine they have at Dollar Tree, that would look nice as well. So I'm going to continue gluing and twisting in a spiral all the way around until I get to the top of the bowl, and then I'm just going to cut it off and glue it on there. Now, to this day, this is still one of my favorite DIYs. I love the look of that nautical rope against that bright blue. It's just so pretty in my kitchen, and it was such an easy DIY to make. Now this next DIY is one of my most recent ones, but I use it so much I had to include it in my list of favorite DIYs. I was doing some DIYs for my kitchen, so I grabbed this cutting board from Dollar Tree, painted it completely white, along with some tumbling tower cubes. I used 2 of them, and this easel that I got from the crafters square portion of my Dollar Tree. I wanted to paint all of the brown wood parts the white color as well. Once I had it completely covered in white, I'm going to make my cutting board look like wood. So I'm using this Waverly wax in the color Antique, and I'm going to go in vertical strokes all along my cutting board. Now, if you change directions in the middle of the cutting board, what you're going to get is a little line where the end of your paintbrush changed directions. So we're going to use that to our advantage and make it look like little knobs in the wood. So just be aware as you're painting this that anywhere you change directions in the middle of your stroke, you're going to add a little character to your cutting board and make it look even more like wood. Next, I'm going to get my 2 tumbling tower cubes that I painted white, and I'm going to glue them end to end, and then I'm just going to use a little hot glue to put it right down at the bottom of my cutting board on the ledge that's already there, which helps to make it nice and straight. Now I'm going to do the same thing with this easel. I'm just going to put some hot glue all over the easel and then line it up to the bottom ledge of the cutting board on the back. And this is going to give me a nice slanted appearance for my cutting board to sit on, and it's going to make sure that it's nice and straight. The last thing I did to the actual cutting board was to come along with some white chalk paint and just do some dry brushing once again to just make it look a little bit more aged and weathered. And then to decorate, I just got some greenery that I had laying around and I put some buffalo check ribbon on it and placed that right on top. I absolutely love this. It's one of the most functional things I've made lately, and it's also really pretty. This way my cell phone, which is what I use most often in my kitchen, doesn't have to be on the wet counter and I barely have to touch it. This next DIY is one of the easiest and cutest DIYs I've done for the farmhouse kitchen look. I'm going to take this plunger that I got from Dollar Tree, and these are just some of my sponge paint brushes, also which I got at Dollar Tree, but I just always have some lying around that are not being used anymore because maybe I left the paint to dry or whatever the reason. So I'm going to take my plunger and I'm going to cut it off into 2 sections, because I'm making 2, but you could actually get 3 out of 1 plunger, and I'm going to cut it into 4-inch sections. Next, I'm going to take my little stick from my paintbrush and I'm going to cut off 1 inch. Now to make 2 mini rolling pins, I'm going to need 4 of these, and I can essentially get that out of 1 paintbrush stick. Once I've got them cut, I'm just going to use some sanding paper to sand them down. And I want to make sure that not only are they smooth, but that they're nice and flat because we are going to be gluing them together. Now I'm going to use some white chalk paint to paint my thicker 4-inch pieces. After that, I do paint one of them yellow because I'm doing this for a little lemon vignette that I did early in the summer. If you want to see the rest of the lemon decor, which was super cute, make sure you head down to the description box and take a look at the other lemon decor pieces that I did in this same DIY tutorial. Now, in order to do the little handles of my mini rolling pin, I just used some watered down brown chalk paint. About 50% paint and 50% water is what I usually do, and I just painted it right on there. One of the things I love about doing it this way is, especially if I'm doing a really quick DIY, this dries in like 2 or 3 minutes, so you don't have to sit and wait for stain to dry if you do it this way. Now, like I said, I decided to paint 1 yellow just to go more with my lemon decor, and I love this color. I think this is the Waverly Maze that you get from Walmart, but it's a really pretty bright and sunny yellow. Next, I wanted to write some words on there, so since this was a lemon theme, I am going to write "Squeeze the Day" on both of my little rolling pins. Of course, if you're just doing this for everyday farmhouse decor, you could write anything on there. You could write home, kitchen, any of those words you see a lot on farmhouse decor would work really well. Or of course, you could just paint them white and then do the brown handles and leave them plain, and they would be absolutely adorable because they're mini. And anytime something is smaller than it should be, it's just really cute. So I'm just going to go ahead and use a Sharpie paint pen to write "Squeeze the Day" on both of my pieces. And once that's nice and dry, I'm just going to take a little bit of hot glue, or you could use some E6000 or Gorilla Glue if you want it to be a little more secure. And I'm just going to put my little handles right on to my rolling pin. Now you guys, this DIY was so easy to do, and you can make so many of these really for each different season if you want to change out the decor in your house. And that's why this is one of my favorite top 10 farmhouse DIYs. Be sure to check out the link in the description box for 2 other adorable lemon themed DIYs. Now the next two DIYs are going to be farmhouse bathroom DIYs. I'm going to use this soap dish that I got from Dollar General, and I'm going to make a little farmhouse soap holder for my guest bathroom. So I'm going to start by taking these little suction cups off of the soap dish, and you can really use any soap dish you'd like. This one worked out really well as far as the size of the pipe and everything goes. I will make sure that I link the tutorial to this DIY down in the description box. It has all the measurements and everything you'll need to complete this DIY. Next, I used these little beads that I got from Joann, I think, but really I've had these in my stash for a long time, so I can't actually remember where I got them from, but you could really just use some round wood beads if you'd like. These look like little feet of a pedestal sink, so I use these. I'm just using hot glue to attach this, but I would recommend using a stronger glue like E6000 or Gorilla Glue for this step. And also, if you're going to be using this for wet soap, you can go ahead and use some plastic beads instead of wood if you think that would last longer around the water and everything in your bathroom. Next, I just got some PVC pipe from Lowe's, and all you want to do is make sure that you get a size that fits into your soap dish, because I just grabbed some that I had at home and it didn't really fit into the soap dish. So I had to go back to Lowe's and actually buy some, but even that was okay because these are so inexpensive. It's only going to cost you a few cents. I also got this spigot from Lowe's, and depending on the size of PVC piping you get, that's going to determine the size of your spigot. Now I'm going to just use some glue to hold that in there because it was smaller than the thread, but that's okay. It stayed in really well with hot glue. So I'm not giving you the exact dimensions of the spigot and the piping because it's really just going to depend on what soap dish you use, but you just want to test it all out and make sure it all fits before you leave the store. Now, in order to attach this, once again, I'm using hot glue, but I definitely would recommend using a stronger glue to hold this together. That way it will last for a long time. It's lasted pretty well with the hot glue for me, but I'm using this in a guest bathroom and it really doesn't get touched. And I just want to make sure that yours lasts for years to come because it is so cute. Now, once we have everything together with our PVC pipe, our PVC elbow, and our spigot, everything is glued onto our soap dish. I just gave a little reinforcement of glue because I think sometimes I use too much hot glue. But then once all of that was stuck on, I went ahead and took it outside and spray painted it, and that was it. For how adorable this looks and how high-end it looks, I can't believe that this DIY took me like 10 minutes to put together. It is super adorable, adds a little high-end look to any bathroom, and I think it's amazing. Now to finish this look, I also made a mason jar holder for tissue and a soap dispenser, so be sure to check out that DIY. I'll leave the link in the description box if you want to complete the look. Now, I had to include this DIY in my list of favorite farmhouse DIYs because even though it's more recent, it's one of my favorites and I love the farmhouse look that it gives in my bathroom, and it looks perfect with that little soap dish that we just made. So I got this frame from Dollar Tree. You can use any size frame. You might want to use a larger one for this outside portion, but the concept of this DIY works no matter what. So I actually need 3 of the same frame. 2 of them I took the backing out and the little clasps out, and 1 I left with the backing and the clasps on there. You also need a smaller picture frame. This one is the 3 by 5.5 frame that they have at Dollar Tree, but as long as it's smaller and it fits inside your larger frames with some margin around it, you're fine. Now, I originally thought I wanted to paint all of my frames this celery green color. I love this color of Waverly chalk paint. You can get it at Walmart. So I painted all 3 of my picture frames plus the backing that's in the last one in this celery green color. I went ahead and replaced the backing into the bottom of my last picture frame, and I glued it in just to make sure it's nice and secure. Next, I went ahead and put some glue onto my frames and I started stacking them. Now, after doing the first one, I did realize that it's actually easier to put the hot glue on the one that you will be putting on top. So putting the hot glue on the one that's going down onto the bottom pieces is a lot easier to make a cleaner look. For whatever reason, the glue just doesn't seep out quite as much. So I'm going to stack all 3 of my picture frames, one right on top of the other. And I'm going to make sure that they line up on each side. Next, I'm ready to put something inside of my smaller frame. Now, because this is going into my bathroom, I decided to do a quick Google image search for farmhouse bathroom sign, and this is what I found. There's a lot of different things to choose from. You can put your favorite quote, or you could really put a picture of your family. I think this would actually be really cute decor for a wedding shower or a baby shower or something like that. So you could put a picture of your family members in it. Whatever you like would look adorable in this frame. So I'm just going to put it in with the backing that came with the frame, and that's it. Now, I had decided I was going to try to distress this down a little bit, so I used a sanding cube that I got from Dollar Tree. After doing all this, I did end up repainting it a different color, but that's okay. You can follow the same steps in whatever color you like. Next, I'm going to take 4 of these tumbling tower game cubes. These you can just get at the Dollar Tree. They come in a pack of, I don't know, probably about 20, and I just usually grab a pack to have on hand because I use the individual cubes in a lot of different projects. I'm going to glue those on all 4 sides of my smaller picture frame, and then I'm going to glue that entire thing down into my larger frames. And now we're ready to decorate. So initially I wanted to use these pink flowers. I thought they would look really nice, but as I was getting them in, I didn't like the way the size looked with my frame. So I decided to change it up and put some greenery in there. But because I wanted to put greenery, I didn't want to have the green frame. So I went ahead and I painted it with some white chalk paint. Now I did want to leave some of that green showing through, so I just lightly went through and dry brushed the white on there. And even though I changed my mind in the middle of this DIY, I love the way the green is showing through the white, so it was kind of a happy little accident that it turned out this way. So now that I have my frame painted white, I'm going to go ahead and add some greenery into all of the margins of this frame. So anywhere that it's empty, I'm just going to put some greenery in there. I just used a tiny little dab of hot glue to hold it in there, because I do think I could easily pull these out and put some different greenery maybe around Christmas time. This would be a really easy DIY to switch out, and you guys know how much I like changing my mind and changing things up for different seasons, so I love a DIY that can change. I think this looks really nice next to this little farmhouse spigot soap dish that we made. I love how fresh this looks. It just reminds me of a spa, and I think it's beautiful. I'll be sure to leave the link to this tutorial and the other 2 farmhouse bathroom decor items I made in that same tutorial. Now this DIY is for your laundry room, and I think it's really cute and I love how it came out, so I'm going to show this to you as one of my top 10 favorites. I got 2 picture frames from Dollar Tree. You can really use any size that you want. You can make this as big as you'd like if you want to get one of the big picture frames. I went kind of for a size that could fit on top of my laundry room shelf. We need to take the backing out of both of these picture frames and the prongs out of just one of them. I used E6000 to glue these together. You could use your glue of choice if you're not going to touch this very much and it's not going to be in a high traffic area. I think hot glue would actually hold this together okay as well. You want to make sure that this lines up nice and straight. I just used a ruler before the glue is set to put it together. Next, I'm going to grab more of those tumbling tower cubes, and like I said, I use these a lot. I just make sure I have a box or maybe 2 laying around my craft room because I often use them in my DIYs. I'm going to put 2 together, and I'm going to do 3 sets of 2, After those are glued together, I'm going to go ahead and glue them on the bottom of my picture frame. Now you want to make sure you put them on the bottom of the frame that does not have the prongs in it, because the top one is going to have a sign and we'll need to put our backing back into that sign. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to paint this with a white chalk paint, and then I'm going to go back through and do a little bit of distressing with black chalk paint to make it look a little more aged and weathered. So now we're going to go ahead and make the metal part of our washing board. I'm just using some poster board and I cut it to about 7.5 inches in height. That's what I needed to fit my frame. If you're not sure about yours, you can use the backing of the picture frame that you took out and just make it the same height as that. I went ahead and cut all the way across the poster board. Once again, I thought it would be easier to have too much than not enough, and I could always trim this off when I was done. Next, I'm going to use my ruler and I'm going to mark off about every 1/2 inch all the way down my poster board. Now I'm going to be folding this in kind of like a fan or accordion fashion, and having these lines will really help me make it nice and neat. Now if you don't do this step, it's really difficult to get it right, so make sure you mark off that first one so that you start off with a nice straight line. Once I've got that first line, you want to make sure that you make each line nice and even. I'm using something heavy just to make that crease as crisp as I can, and then make sure that you make each fold the same size as the one before it. As you go, it will be really tempting if you don't watch that each fold will get slightly bigger than the one before it, and we want this to have a nice uniform look. Once I've gotten the whole thing folded, I'm going to take it outside and I'm going to use some of this Rust-Oleum metallic metal paint to paint my accordion. While that's drying, I'm going to do the sign for the inside of my washboard. So I'm going to paint this completely black, and I'm also going to use my black on my now dry piece of poster board. So once that metallic paint is dry, I'm just going to go back through and dry brush on some black. This is just going to give it more of a little bit of an aged metal look. It's not going to look like that perfect silver, and it's going to look a little more like the steel that we want it to look like. Now I'm going to take my accordion and I'm going to glue it into my frame. I did end up cutting about 4 inches off because, as I said, I did make it longer than I needed to. But at this point, you can cut off any extra that you have, and that way you'll be able to fit it nicely into your frame. And this is a sign that I printed off to go into the top of my frame. I do have a free printable in the tutorial for this actual DIY. I will leave that down in the description box. So if you click on that, you'll see the video and go down to the description box in that video and you will see this printable. And all I did was a pencil transfer. I colored on the back, traced that onto the black, and then I was able to trace that with a white paint pen, and it looks so pretty. I think it looks real, and it was actually really fun to make. Now this next DIY is another quick one that is an easy dupe of a Kirkland's catalog item. I'm going to use this container and this set of 2 bowls that I got from Dollar Tree. I'm going to take the lid off of the container, and I'm using hot glue, but of course you could use Gorilla Glue or E6000, and that actually would probably hold a little better for this plastic on plastic DIY. So I'm going to glue the larger bowl right on top of my canister, and then I'm going to flip the smaller bowl right side up, and I'm going to glue that on top of that. Once I have that completed, I'm going to use this Waverly chalk paint, and I'm going to paint the entire thing. Now in order to make my handles, I'm going to use these curlers that I got from Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to roll them up and make the shape of a handle. Now once we put paint on this, it actually crackles off pretty easily if you manipulate it too much, so I want to make sure it's the exact shape that I want it to be before I put it onto my container. And then I'm just going to go ahead and paint this whole thing. Now I did use chalk paint, and you guys can let me know down in the comments, but I wonder if acrylic paint wouldn't chip off quite as much as this did. But you can let me know what your thoughts and experiences are. Now we're going to go ahead and glue that plastic part onto the container. I forgot to get footage of that because, well, mom brain, but you're just going to glue that right onto the container. Then I put a little bit of extra hot glue all around the sides because I wanted it to have kind of like a look like it was welded on there. That's definitely a step that you don't have to take. I just thought it was a nice little detail to add onto my milk canister. Now in order to age this up a little bit, I'm just going to take a little bit of a sponge that I already had. This sponge, it was kind of getting old, so I just tore some pieces off of it because I didn't want any rough edges and I wanted a more organic shape. And I'm just going to dab that right into my paint, and I'm just going to kind of stipple it all over my milk jug. Now I don't like to go too harsh on the distressing. That's just my personal taste. You can add as much or as little distressing as you like for the look of your farmhouse decor. Once your distressing is done, you can go ahead and put some lettering on your canister if you'd like to. I'm just going to use these stickers that I got from Dollar Tree. These larger ones came from Dollar Tree, and I believe the smaller ones came from Walmart. They've been in my stash for a while, but they do also have smaller letters at the Dollar Tree if you'd like to get all of your stickers there. Now this canister has a nice seam down the middle of it, and you can barely see it when you're looking at it, but it actually made it easier for me to space out my letters nice and evenly and to make sure they were centered on the front of my milk jug. I just pressed the letters on there, and once that's done, if you'd like this to last for a long time to come, you can go ahead and use a sealer to seal it up, such as Mod Podge or a spray sealer, and that will hold everything on there nicely. Now, for the price, you cannot beat this. It was about $2.50, and I think it looks gorgeous. Now, my next Farmhouse DIY is another one from the Kirkland's catalog that I got a lot of positive feedback on. So many people liked it, and so that's why it made the list of my top 10 favorite Farmhouse DIYs. Now, this is just a frame that I got from Dollar Tree, and I've had this one for a while, but they always have every season some variation of this same frame at the Dollar Tree. I do believe this one was about 7.5 by 7.5. Of course, it doesn't have to be this exact size, and depending on what you're going to put in the middle, you can make it larger or smaller depending on the frame that you find. Now, I'm going to go ahead and draw an X starting from each corner of my frame, and what this is going to do is to help me make sure that I cut off my ends and that they're all even. So on that line that came down to the middle of my corner, I'm going to line up my 1-inch marker on there, and I'm going to draw all the way across. I wanted to make sure that all 4 of them were about the same size. You could also just kind of eyeball it if you'd like, and then use the first one to make sure that the rest of the 3 are the same size, but I thought measuring it out made it a little bit of a neater and more uniformed look. Now I'm just going to cut my edges off, and I'm going to set those to the side. Next, it's time to paint my frame. Now you could use that same technique that we used in the beginning on the cutting board by painting this entire thing with white chalk paint and then coming back with some brown chalk paint or some brown antiquing wax and giving it that wood look. The day that I made this DIY, my white paint was critically low, so I just went ahead and painted the whole thing brown, and then I did some distressing on top of that. But what you want to make sure you do is you paint your little triangles and your frame brown, and then I use some black chalk paint to paint 2 skewers that are going to go in the back of my picture frame. Then I came back along with some black chalk paint and I just did some lines and some distressing with that. And then I used this mineral color to make kind of a gray and came back through with that to make even more distressing and just to give it a little more depth of color. So I like the look of this. You can definitely do it this way, or you can use the technique that I used earlier by painting it all white. Now, this flower is part of the spring Dollar Tree collection. You can use it as a door hanger, I believe, and they had some that were decorations for your yard. So I went ahead and I detached everything and I just wanted the flower. I also wanted to fill in that hole so that you wouldn't be able to see it, so I filled it in with a little bit of hot glue before painting it, and then I painted the entire thing white. Now, if you're watching this and it's not springtime, that's okay. Walk through your Dollar Tree and just see what's there. This same concept would actually be really adorable with so many of the different seasonal things they have. I actually think it might look cute with like a little skull for Halloween. Matter of fact, I might do that DIY. You might see that in an upcoming video. Use your imagination for what can go in the middle of this if you don't have access to the flowers right at the moment that you see this tutorial. So once I had the whole flower painted white, I used some black chalk paint and I just went along the edges and did a little bit of distressing. Once again, I don't like for my things to be too distressed, but that's your personal preference. You can put as much black as you'd want. And the thing to remember is if you put too much, guys, it's okay. Just come back with some white chalk paint, clear it up a little bit and make it look how you want it. Have some grace for yourself while you're doing this. It's really going to look great. Just keep crafting and it's going to turn out really beautiful. Once everything was dry, I was ready to put it all together. So I'm going to take my triangles that I cut off of my frame and I'm just going to glue them back into the corners of my frame. Make sure when you do this, you are gluing the painted side of your triangle down so that when you look at your frame, the right side, it will have all the brown facing out. Next, I'm going to take those two skewers that I painted black and I'm just going to kind of measure how long they need to be. And I'm also going to glue these onto the back of my picture frame. Now, I was using scissors this day, but a lot of sweet subscribers told me that pet nail clippers work really well and pruning shears that you can get at Dollar Tree also work well for cutting these skewers. So that's just a little tip you can use to make it easier for yourself. Of course, if they're really thin, the scissors work, but you know, any little bit that can make it easier and save a pair of scissors from getting ruined is a good idea. So when you glue these together, the one that is going on top of the first one, you'll need to hold the pressure down because it will be a little bit bowed, but it will stay after the hot glue dries. Next, I was ready to glue on my flower. Now, when I first tried to do this, I realized that it didn't make contact with my skewers because there's a little bit of a domed effect in the middle of that flower. So I just added a wood bead that I had laying around. Of course, you could use one of the little blocks that they have at the Crafter's Square portion of Dollar Tree, or maybe even a tumbling tower cube. Whatever you have, you just want it to touch the back of the flower so that we can glue it on there and it'll stay nice and secure. Now, because we are gluing onto such a small point, I used hot glue to attach this. You may want to use E6000 or some other really strong glue to make sure that this stays for the long haul. So I'm just going to glue it on there and that is it, you guys. This looks exactly like the inspiration piece, but for $2. I love the way it came out. So my final DIY is one of my recent favorites. I love the transformation of these beach toys into farmhouse decor. Of course, you can use this technique on so many different things, so use your imagination. I'm going to start out by taking off the top and the bottom of these little beach toys, the rake and the shovel, and I'm going to use the technique of painting it white and then following along with the antiquing wax to make this look like wood. Next, we need to make the handle and the shovel part look like metal. Now, this is a technique that I use, and be sure to check the description box and watch the original video for a more thorough explanation. But basically, I'm going to dapple on some light gray paint. I'm going to follow it up with a darker gray, almost black color. And finally, I'm going to stipple on some silver paint on top. And if you want to, you can come back through with some red to make it look like rust. And what we have after all of that is a real metal and a real wood look. And if you can believe, these started out as blue and red and yellow toys. It's just an amazing transformation. Be sure to check out that original video for a more thorough explanation of that painting technique. I take you through it so that you can do it on anything you decide to paint to make look like real metal. Next, I'm going to use this sign that I got from Dollar Tree. They have different shapes of signs, so a lot of times what I'll do is I'll go through and I'll just look for the shape of the sign, something a little more interesting than just a square, and I'll grab it whether I like the picture on it or not, because like I'm doing here, I could always just take the paper off, sand it down a little bit, and now I've got this nice pretty base to work off of. I'm going to go ahead and paint this entire thing white. And next, I'm going to use the same technique that I used a little earlier, but now I have time to give you a little bit more of an explanation. This, once again, is another Google image search that I did. This is not my art. I use Google Images a lot when I'm decorating my home, so make sure you hop on the computer and see what you can find on there. So I'm just going to cut out this printout that I made off of Google, and I'm going to turn it over and I'm going to color the back with some pencil. Now you want to make sure you cover every part of the image because that's what we're going to use to transfer onto our plaque. Once I have the whole thing covered with the pencil, I'm going to turn it back over and tape it on. Next, I'm going to come through with a pen, or you could use the tip of a pencil, anything you want, but you're going to go ahead and trace every part of this picture that you want to be on your sign. So let's say, for instance, you didn't like that border, you could just skip that part and do the animals, but whatever you want to be on your sign is what you need to trace. After that, we have a nice outline of the same picture on our plaque. So I'm just going to use these Sharpie paint pens and I'm going to go back through and just color in everything that I just did. For this, I needed a thicker pen and a thinner one because there were some very fine elements of the drawing. But if you're just doing this for lettering, let's say, you can just use a thick Sharpie pen. And this is a really great way to get graphics on your home decor if you don't have any kind of vinyl cutter that you can use to make images. I like to do it the old school way. It's very affordable, and until I get my hands on a vinyl cutter, which maybe I will one day, this is how I decorate all of my home decor. Now I'm just going to come back through with some black chalk paint and give it a little bit of aging, a little bit of weathering. And once that's done, I'm ready to line up my rake and my shovel and decide how I want to decorate it. So I'm going to line them up the way I want them to go. And I did want to mention, guys, if you want this paint to stay for the long term, you need to seal it with some spray paint sealer. You could even use some Mod Podge if you like the look of that. Whatever you use to seal your artwork, that's what you're going to want to use on these toys to make sure that the paint does not go anywhere. Now I'm hanging mine on my wall, so nobody's going to touch it and it's going to be fine. But if it's in a high traffic area, definitely seal it. I just used a craft stick to glue these together down at the bottom to make sure that they stayed exactly where I wanted them to be. I filled in that hole with some hot glue and then painted over that so that you wouldn't be able to see the hole in my plaque. And then I glued the whole thing right onto the handles of my rake and shovel. Next, I wasn't sure how I wanted to hang this, so I went ahead and I put some buffalo check ribbon on the top so that I could hang this on the wall. Of course, right now I just have it leaning on a shelf, but you can use this any way you want. And this is just a bundle of greenery that I had from another DIY that I borrowed to put on this one because I thought it looked so pretty. And that's it. I also made these sconces with the same technique. It's in the video that I'll link down in the description box if you want to see how I do my faux metal paint. But I love this DIY. I think it's gorgeous. Okay, that was a lot of fun DIYs. I love each and every one. I'm not even gonna pretend to pick a favorite this time because I like each one of them for a different reason, which is why they made it into today's video. But don't forget to head down to the comments and let me know which one was your favorite or which one you've done at home and let me know how it went. So today's treat is also one of my favorites. I did this one in my video where I did lemons, and it's a lemon themed dessert and it was delicious. You guys, I had to walk away from this thing and give it to other people so I would not keep eating it. I absolutely loved it. It's perfect for summer, so I wanted to show it to you guys again as one of my favorites. Okay guys, it's time to eat. So we're going to start out with a 9 by 13 pan, and we're just going to cover that with aluminum foil. You want to make sure you have extra foil hanging off of the edges because we're going to have to lift our bars in and out of this pan a few times. Next, we're going to use some non-stick spray and just spray it all over our foil. I'm going to use some crescent roll dough to make the base of my bars. You can also use phyllo dough if you'd like. And we're going to pop that in the oven for 15 minutes at 350 degrees. Next, I got 2 lemons, and I chose to use Meyer lemons because they're a little sweeter. I'm going to zest them and juice them. Next, I'm going to put the juice of 2 lemons, and this equals about 3 to 4 tablespoons. And some of the lemon zest, I'm going to use about half of what I got from the 2 lemons. I'm going to add some cream cheese, and I'm going to use 2 blocks. And then I'm just going to use a hand mixer to mix all of that together. Next, I'm going to add my sugar. And I like to add a few drops of vanilla. This part is not in the recipe, but I do think it adds a little something special. I'm going to blend that all together. Next, I'm going to take my dough, and after it's cooled down for about 10 to 15 minutes, I'm going to add my cream cheese mixture right on top. Now, if you think it's hard to resist looking in the bowl when you make cookie dough, try to keep yourself from eating this. Next, I'm going to get another pack of crescent roll dough, and I'm just going to lay it right on top. I'm going to cut off the edges. Of course, if you used a slightly bigger pan, you wouldn't really have any extras to cut off, but I just want to make sure that it's not too doughy around the edges. And I'm just going to press it down and make sure that it fits into my pan. Next, I'm going to use about 2 tablespoons of melted butter, my lemons that I zested, and a few tablespoons of sugar. I'm going to mix the lemon zest and the sugar all together. Next, I'm going to pour or brush my butter right on top of my dough. And I'm just going to spread that butter around so it's nice and even. Next, I'm going to sprinkle my sugar and lemon zest mixture right on top. After this bakes, it makes this sweet, lemony, crackly, crunchy sugar crust that is just to die for. I'm going to pop that back in the oven, and once it comes out, I'm going to let it cool for about 20 to 30 minutes. Once it's cooled down a little bit and the cream cheese has firmed up a little bit, I'm going to go ahead and cut it. Make sure to leave it in the foil because you're going to want to use that foil to lift it back into your pan. After I put that in the refrigerator for at least an hour, they come out and they are these delicious cheesecake bars with sweet, sugary, lemony goodness right on top, and they are to die for. I hope you like these DIYs. These are some of my all-time favorite farmhouse DIYs. I can't believe I've been doing DIYs on YouTube for almost a year. It has been so fun. I've made so many great projects, but also I've just met so many great friends on YouTube. So thank you guys for being awesome. So please, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Let me know down in the description which one was your favorite, and please guys, share it with a friend. Thank you so much for your support thus far. I am ever so grateful, and I'll see you next time when we repeat it all again.